A handful of men walked into a sweltering room in Philadelphia, arguing bitterly. By the time they walked out, they had written a set of rules that would run a superpower for over 240 years. But getting there almost destroyed the nation before it even began. In 1776, declaring independence was the easy part. Defending it was a nightmare. The British Empire responded by unleashing the full might of its military. Thousands of highly trained, heavily armed redcoats flooded the American coastline. Against them stood the Continental Army, a ragtag group of farmers, merchants, and volunteers. They were severely outgunned, underfunded, and lacked basic military training. Under the leadership of General George Washington, they faced crushing defeats in the early days of the war. New York quickly fell to the British, forcing Washington's army into a desperate retreat. Morale plummeted. Soldiers were deserting, and Congress had no money to pay them. During the brutal winter at Valley Forge, disease and starvation claimed thousands of lives. The dream of a new, independent nation was hanging by a mere thread. It seemed inevitable that the American rebellion would be violently crushed. But Washington knew they didn't have to defeat the British Empire. They just had to outlast them. Despite the grim winter, Washington's strategic brilliance kept the Continental Army alive. They utilized guerrilla tactics, hitting British supply lines and vanishing into the woods. But the turning point came in 1777 at the Battle of Saratoga. American forces surrounded and captured an entire British army, stunning the world. This victory caught the attention of Britain's greatest rival, France. Eager for revenge, King Louis XVI decided to secretly fund the American cause. Soon, secret funds turned into open alliances, bringing French troops, weapons, and a powerful navy. With French support, the Continental Army transformed from a ragtag militia into a professional fighting force. The war raged on for years, moving from the northern cities to the southern swamps. Finally, in 1781, a massive combined American and French force trapped the British Army at Yorktown. Surrounded by Washington on land and blockaded by the French fleet at sea, the British had nowhere to run. General Cornwallis surrendered, effectively ending the major combat of the Revolutionary War. The news reached London, sending shockwaves through the Parliament and the King. In 1783, the Treaty of Paris was signed, officially recognizing the United States of America as a free and independent nation. The impossible dream had become reality. But the true test of this new nation was just beginning. Winning the war was one thing, but running a country was entirely different. The truth is, the new United States wasn't really a united nation at all. Under their first government, called the Articles of Confederation, it was more like a loose alliance of 13 separate countries. Having just fought a war against a tyrant, they were terrified of creating another powerful king. So they made the national government incredibly weak on purpose. Congress had no power to collect taxes, meaning they had absolutely no money. They couldn't fund an army, and they couldn't pay back the massive debts from the Revolutionary War. To make matters worse, each state started printing its own, separate, often worthless money. States even began taxing each other's goods, sparking bitter economic trade wars. The economy was collapsing, and ordinary farmers were losing their land and being thrown into debtors' prisons. This frustration finally boiled over in 1786 with Shays' Rebellion in Massachusetts. Thousands of desperate farmers took up arms against their own government. The weak National Congress couldn't even raise a single regiment of soldiers to stop them. The rebellion was eventually crushed by a privately funded militia. But the terrifying message was clear. The American experiment was failing, and without a drastic change, the fragile nation would tear itself apart. In the summer of 1787, 55 delegates traveled back to Philadelphia to fix their broken government. They locked the doors, closed the windows in the sweltering heat, and kept everything a strict secret. Instead of just fixing the old system, they decided to tear it down and build a completely new one. But almost immediately, the room divided into bitter factions. Large states wanted representation based on population, which would give them much more power. Small states were terrified of being crushed and demanded equal votes for every state. The arguments grew so heated that the entire convention almost collapsed. Finally, they reached the Great Compromise, creating a clever two-part Congress. The House of Representatives would be based on population, satisfying the large states, and the Senate would give every state exactly 2 votes, protecting the smaller ones. But there was an even darker compromise looming over the room: the issue of slavery. Southern states wanted enslaved people to count towards their population for more political power, while denying them basic human rights. This resulted in the infamous 3/5 compromise, a deep moral flaw built directly into the new nation's foundation. Despite these profound divisions, the delegates ultimately created a radically new framework of government. They called it the United States Constitution, a system carefully designed to balance power and prevent tyranny. With the Constitution written, the Founding Fathers had a new problem. They had to convince the states to actually accept it. The country was immediately split into two fierce camps: the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. Federalists argued that a strong central government was the only way to hold the fragile nation together. Anti-Federalists, however, were terrified. They had just overthrown a king. Why create a new government that could become just as oppressive? They pointed out a glaring issue. The new Constitution didn't explicitly protect individual freedoms. To win them over, a massive compromise was needed: a written guarantee of personal liberty. James Madison sat down and drafted a list of specific rights that the government could never take away. This list became known as the Bill of Rights. Officially added to the Constitution in 1791, it guaranteed the freedom of speech, religion, and the press. It protected citizens from unreasonable searches and ensured the right to a fair trial. With these vital protections in place, the skeptical states finally agreed to ratify the Constitution. The great American experiment was now armed with both a strong government and a shield for its citizens. These 10 amendments became the ultimate safeguard against tyranny. They transformed the Constitution from a mere set of rules into a living document of human rights. And those exact same words still protect the fundamental freedoms of hundreds of millions of Americans today. Over 2 centuries later, the system they built in that sweltering room is still running today. To prevent anyone from becoming a tyrant, the Constitution divided government power into 3 distinct branches. The legislative branch, Congress, is responsible for writing the laws. The executive branch, led by the president, enforces those laws and runs the country day to day. And the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, ensures those laws are fair and constitutional. This creates a brilliant system known as checks and balances. If the president tries to take too much power, Congress has the authority to stop them. If Congress passes an unfair law, the Supreme Court can strike it down entirely. It is a constant, deliberate tug of war designed to keep the government in check and protect the people. But the founders knew they weren't perfect, and they knew the world would change. So they made the Constitution a living document, meaning it can be amended and updated. Over the last 240 years, it has been amended to abolish slavery, grant women the right to vote, and expand civil rights. It's not a magical fix for every problem, and the political system is often messy, slow, and deeply divided. But this framework has survived civil wars, global conflicts, and massive social upheavals. The U.S. Constitution remains the oldest functioning written constitution in the world, a testament to the enduring power of we the people.
Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Gold Era History, and join us in Episode 3 as we head into the wild frontier.